The cloud storage market has seen explosive growth in recent years, led mainly by giants in the industry such as Amazon and Microsoft. But they're not the only ones finding opportunities in the growing market. For example, Ottawa's HubStor is finding its niche in offering a data management platform and recently landed a marquee customer in the form of Virgin Hyperloop One. We're going to hear more about that exciting deal, plus get some legal tips from Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall this week on Techopia Live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Techopia Live. I am your host, Craig Lord, the editor here at Techopia. We are back after a couple weeks, but we are still in the accelerator space here at Invest Ottawa, where some of the city's most exciting startups are surrounding us, getting down to business. But we are also joined by one of the other startups you should be paying attention to here in Ottawa. Jeff Bourgeois, you are the CEO of HubStor, one of the players in the cloud market, offering a software solution that we're going to hear a little bit more about in just a second. But first, I want to introduce, just to your right, Connor Cronin. You are the associate at Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall. Can you tell us, Connor, a little bit about what Perley does in the city and what you do there?
Yeah, for sure. So Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall, it's a full-service law firm. We've been around since the 70s. We do the whole range of legal services. I'm an associate in the corporate department, working with a range of companies from startups to public companies. We've got IP, patents, we do financings, mergers and acquisitions, all sorts of good stuff.
Awesome. And there's a lot of expertise that comes out of that law firm. We're going to check in with you a little bit later in the show to get some of your expertise on the issue of shareholder agreements and why we should even have those as early stage startups. But before we get there, Jeff, we mentioned a little bit off the top about the exciting opportunity that exists right now in the cloud market. Can you break down, you're working in cloud, storage, and software. How does HubStor kind of thread the needle between those kind of interesting verticals?
Well, that's a good question. I think data storage, there is a flood of data storage that's happening in the enterprise space, right? If you think about every type of business that's out there, they're fundamentally generating data. And this can be in the form of medical imaging data, geospatial data, video, just office documents and what have you. The problem is that getting to the cloud isn't always as easy as you'd think it would be. Mm-hmm. So there's storage in the cloud, there's compute in the cloud, but for organizations, traditionally their client-server era infrastructure exists on-prem. But we're seeing more of a hybrid cloud world where organizations want to be able to leverage a hybrid cloud infrastructure such that compute and storage can be at the edge, in the cloud, and in their data centers. So what's fundamentally needed to achieve that dream is a software layer that ties these infrastructures together and makes it very easy for data to move between these delivery models, but then also that the data is very secure, protected, available for analytics and other use cases.
Mm-hmm. And the company's been around for a few years now, but just last month you landed a very cool customer in the form of Virgin Hyperloop One. Can you take us a little bit behind the scenes? How did you land this cool customer that's trying to reinvent basically how we get from point A to point B?
It's a good question. HubStor right now is landing many cool customers. Virgin Hyperloop One is certainly a neat name to talk about, but their story and the challenges that they faced are not unique to them. Many companies are faced with similar challenges, and really they had storage on-prem and increasingly using collaboration systems, SaaS services in the cloud, and needing a solution that would help them back up this data, deal with long-term retention, but also give them a security and data governance layer over this corpus of information, because in the industry that they're in, they're moving into a very regulated world, and so having a good handle on the basics of what information do we have, who's got access to what, who's touching what. That's very important for many businesses today. So HubStor, again, ties into these different data sources and gives them a sort of single pane of glass, a central way of getting a handle on the protection and retention and management of that information.
Yeah, so you mentioned this flood of data from on-prem to cloud, these hybrid systems. To protecting the integrity of that data, it's an immense concern for almost every company out there today, every enterprise in the world. So clear to see why there's a demand for something like HubStor. But before you're landing companies like Hyperloop One, Connor, we want to talk about something that's integral to early stage startups. That's setting up a shareholder agreement. Why should we care about this? And do you have any kind of tips on what companies need to keep in mind as they go through that early stage process?
Sure. So always recommend a shareholders agreement, especially when my clients may be a group of young entrepreneurs, maybe even starting their first business together. It's basically a plan for how the company's going to be run, and more importantly, kind of what happens if things don't work out. So number one tip I have for a shareholders agreement is basically have it set out how people exit, how people give up their shares if they're no longer involved with the business, or if the relationship between the founders kind of breaks down. Because and you have to do it at the beginning because that's when the relationship's good. You don't want to have this conversation when kind of things are going bad. And the reason for that is one, if somebody wants to leave, they can do it kind of amicably, and they're able to kind of they can negotiate whatever terms they want. But if things aren't really working out, they have something to fall back on in this plan that they set up a number of years ago to kind of rely on, which is really good. And then that's kind of important because startup communities are small and people know each other, and people want to know that you can work with others well. So if you can kind of exit a business that maybe isn't living up to your expectations on good terms, that's going to get around and people will want to work with you in the future.
Might be a controversial analogy to make, but it's almost like getting a prenuptial agreement before you get married.
It's exactly like that. It's
Yeah.
exactly like that. Do it when things are good, and so you have something to rely on.
Avoid the messy divorce.
Exactly.
You don't want it to happen, but be prepared.
Exactly.
Exactly. So getting back to Jeff, and a little bit about HubStor. One of the things that I'm interested in when it comes to a SaaS model is that it's easy to onboard customers. That they can sign up, they can see how your solution is going to fit without making big hardware investments, that kind of thing. But it's also easier for them to leave. Can you maybe talk about how that interesting dynamic actually helps HubStor to stay accountable and build those customer relationships?
Yeah, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I think as organizations are going into the cloud, we have new privacy laws like GDPR in California, and many of the states in the US are expected to come out with GDPR-like data privacy laws. So as people move into the cloud, there's a stronger concern around the ownership of the information, their ability to interrogate that data, and ultimately that they own it and can get it back, right? Mm-hmm. So nobody wants to be locked in, and traditionally in enterprise IT, there's been a large element of lock-in. And that's both a technology lock-in, but there's also an element of contractual lock-in. Vendors often want to be sticky, and stickiness sometimes translates into big term commitments and it being very difficult to cancel out of a contract. So we try to be very customer-centric in our approach, both on the technology side and the contractual side, so that it's, we don't have any delusions of grandeur that we own, just because someone's using our software as a service, that we own the data. It's their data, and basically we make it very easy for them to onboard, but also if they ever needed to, if business circumstances shifted, to get the data out. Mm-hmm. And the data extraction capabilities are very important because they need that anyways or responding to a legal discovery request or some sort of audit, or to do a data recovery at scale.
And in a way, it almost expands the sales cycle a little bit. It's not just sign on the dotted line and then we got you. It's keeping that relationship going, because at any month, you could lose a significant cash cow, and it becomes increasingly important to keep them happy and pleased with your product.
Yeah, that deep, in my heart, I believe that it creates a very healthy relationship between the customer and the vendor, because we know that that we've made it easy for people to leave, and so what's going to make it sticky then is not that we've arbitrarily introduced elements of lock-in. The stickiness comes from us providing value, being very easy to work with, understanding our customers. So it puts a lot of emphasis on customer success, a lot of emphasis on good quality software, and I think that's all very healthy dynamic. We always have a very a good fire under our butt to maintain a competitive beachhead and do a good job. So I think that's net it's a win-win scenario.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very cool to hear about the mindset shifts that come with the SaaS model, and how companies need to think differently when they're approaching potential customers and their existing customers when they're doing software as a service subscription. So Jeff, I want to thank you very much for giving us kind of the scoop on what HubStor is doing right now in the cloud storage market. And Connor, I want to thank you as well from Perley-Robertson and McDougall, giving us kind of the insight on shareholders agreements and why they matter.
For sure.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Now, before I let you guys go, I want to take a quick moment to thank some of our other sponsors without whom this show would not be possible. I want to start with Number Crunch, offering virtual CFO services to SaaS firms. There's TD Bank, offering specialized programs for tech firms. There's Stratford Managers, offering services to help you scale up your tech venture. The University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering, creating the next generation of technical talent. There's KRP Properties, offering so much more than just space. And of course, we had Connor here today from Perley-Robertson Hill McDougall, a leader in business and tech law. Now, of course, Techopia is not just this fantastic show. We are also available on obj.ca/Techopia with daily articles covering Ottawa's tech scene. You can find us on social at Techopia OTT on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please leave us a like and a comment, and hit subscribe if you'd like to see more of our weekly tech interviews. Apart from that, I just want to thank you very much for joining us again for Techopia Live. We'll be back next week with another episode, and we hope to see you then.